Okay, so in the last video, we went through our notes on how to work with lists and strings. And so in this video, we're gonna finish with that list of items that we had from the last set of notes of things you wanna be able to do in App Inventor. So I'm gonna try and demonstrate some of these things. I'm gonna keep the video as short as I can, but it probably is gonna take you a little time to work through this, because what I'm gonna recommend you do is with each different thing that I show you, you pause the video and you do it with me on App Inventor. So watch the first couple steps of the video, then hit pause and do it yourself on App Inventor. That also means that you should have your tablet nearby, handy, ready to go, so that you can test this on your tablet and make sure things are working correctly. So with that said, let's review real quick. What were the things that you wanted to be able to do at the end of the last video? All right. So basically what we had were 5 things: initialize a list, add things to your list, display your list, allow the user to pick something from your list, and then have the computer find something in your list. All right, so those are the 5 things that we're going to go over right now. And for your next app, you will at some point or another in the app use all of these different things. All right, so with that said, let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open App Inventor up, and you're going to want to start a new app. And what I've entitled mine is I've entitled it List Notes. Okay, so List Notes is what I've called mine. All right. Of course, the other thing you're going to want to do is have your tablet nearby and ready to go. And so let me hook my tablet up. So there we go. My tablet's good to go now too. And we're going to get started. So in fact, let me switch my camera over so that you can see my tablet as we're going. All right, so here we go. There's my tablet right there. All right. So refresh. All right, so in my designer view, oh, I've already got a couple things in my designer view. So let's not have this in here. Let's delete that. There we go. So this is what you're going to want in your designer view. Now I've dragged out a button and I've dragged out a text box. So you'll want to do the same thing, drag out a button and drag out a text box. I also changed my background color of my screen. You don't have to do that. The reason I did that is just so that my screen is easier to look at in the video, because when it was a white background, it was pretty harsh to look at in the video. So I changed my background to be gray just for the purposes of making that easier. All right, so at the beginning of this is all we need is one button and one text box. Okay, now what we're going to do first is we're going to talk about how to initialize a list, how to make a list. So you'll see, and you'll be tempted to click on right away, there's a tool drawer for lists. But when you click on this, what you'll see, the only button that says create list or make lists, these are the only 2. Whoops, sorry. And what you'll notice is that both of them have the little tab at the end, which means they have to be plugged into something. Right? You can't just take those and have them by their own. And so what we need is we need something that allows us to name the list. And App Inventor treats your list just like it's any other kind of variable. And so the way that we're going to do this is in the variable tool drawer, we'll drag out the initialize box or block like we usually do. We'll change this to be our name. We're only going to make one list. So I'm just going to name it our list. Okay. Like always, you would want to give it an informative name. In the app that you're about to build, you're going to be working with more than one list. So you're going to want to make sure you give it a good informative name. And then you would connect your block to this, right? Now, I also mentioned in the other video that creating an empty list is almost universally a bad idea. There's all kinds of issues that can happen if you're not careful with an empty list. And all of those issues can be avoided just simply by having a list start with something in it, okay? The other thing I mentioned in the last video is notice that both of these have the little gear button in the corner. And remember, the gear button lets you add things. So these are actually the same block. It's just one of them had nothing in it. So notice how just by clicking on that gear button, I've switched which one makes the empty list and which one makes something that has stuff in it. All right. So like I said, we do not want to have an empty list. We're going to do this. And I'm going to go ahead and make something that has 3 slots, 3 folders, 3 indices. And I'm going to name those things index or with numbers, just 1, 2, 3. Okay. So it's nice and intuitive, just to remind us of the way App Inventor counts the indices. It counts 1, 2, and 3 is the way App Inventor counts indices. Okay, so that's nice that App Inventor counts it that way. It's a very intuitive method, and that's what we're going to want there. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to make it so that when the person clicks the button on the screen, it shows people the list. And so to do that, I'm going to drag out this item called list view. List view. And I'm just going to leave its dimensions set to automatic. When you're doing your app, you might want to leave them automatic. You might want to do something with those. That'll be up to you to decide. But I'm going to drag out the list view. Okay. Now, what I want to do then is I want, when we click the button, I want people to see in that list view all the things in our list. Okay. So the way that I do that is I set the elements of the list view. So elements, that refers to the things that the list view is showing the user. And what I want it to show is our list. So I'm going to set the elements, and what I'm going to set them to be are the things in our list. Okay, so what this will do is when we click the button, it'll show in the list view all the things in our list. All right, so let's test that and see what happens. When I click the button, sure enough, there's our list, and there's the 3 things that were in the list, the numbers 1, 2, 3. Right? So that's how I can show people what is in my list. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to be able to change what's in the list. Okay? Change what's in the list or add things to the list. So let me share my screen with you again. And let's go back into our block view. And so now what I want to have happen is when they click the button, I want to add onto the list whatever they've typed into the text box. Okay, so whatever they've typed in the text box, we're going to add to the list. So in the list tool drawer, there's an add items to list button or block. So that's what we're going to use. Notice that I've put it in front of the set elements block. The reason I've done that is because we have to add items to the list first and then show people the new list after that. So that's the reason I've put them in that order. And this thing is just a procedure, and that procedure requires 2 inputs. The first input is the name of the list that we're adding to. So we're going to add it to our list. And the second is the thing that we're adding. And so like I said, what I want to add is the text that they've typed into the text box. That's what I want to add. Whoops. There we go. All right. So now what this will do is it'll add something to our list, and what it adds is whatever they've typed into the text box. So let's go to our tablet and try that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to type my name, okay, but whatever. Type something into the text box. And then I'm going to push the button. And now it's added that to my list. Notice that when it adds it to the list, it always adds it at the end. Okay, that's always going to be that way. The thing that it adds to the list will get added to the end. All right. However, there is a way to add it into the middle if you want to. And so let me show you how to add it in the middle real quick. And that'll take care of how you add things to your list. So back in my block view, instead of adding it to the end, which is what that block does, what I want to do is I want to insert it. And that's going to insert it in the middle of your list. Insert. All right. So notice this has 3 things now. There's the thing that the name of our list. There's the thing that we're adding, but now we also need an index. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in slot number 2. Slot number 2. Okay, so now what this will do is it's going to add whatever they've typed into the text box to our list, and it's going to put it in folder number 2 or slot number 2, index number 2. And then all the other things in the list will get moved back one index. They'll all get moved back. So let's take a look at our list. Index number 2 is right here. So whatever they type into the text box, it's going to get added right here. And then these 3 items will all get moved back one slot. All right. So go ahead and type whatever you want to type in there. I'm going to, I don't know, 16. I'm going to add the number 16. All right. And so what should happen is 16 should show up right here. And then all 3 of these will get pushed back one slot. So if I push the button, boom, that's exactly what happens. All right. So that's the insert. Now, the last thing that I want to show you as far as adding to the list, we're not going to actually do it. I just want to show you real fast. There is another button or another block called the replace block. Replace. Okay. So replace works basically the same way as an insert. You need your list, you need the index number, and you need the item that you're putting into the list. The difference is instead of moving everything back one slot, it just does a complete trade out. So if I were to put these exact same blocks right here, what it would do is whatever is in index number 2, it will delete that thing and replace it with the information from the text box. All right. So those are all the different ways that you might add things to a list. There's actually a couple other ways too, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to stop there. All right. So the next thing is to let somebody choose things from your list, to let somebody choose things or pick things from your list. All right. So for this, what we want to do, we can just drag that out also. What we want to do is in the list view, in the controls for list view, notice there's something that says after picking. After picking. So after picking, what that picking means is when they touch something in the list, that's picking it. When they touch something in the list, they've picked it. And so what we want to do, here's what I'm going to do. Since we don't have a label, we just have a text box. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the text in the text box to be whatever it is they picked from the list. So the thing they've picked is called the selection. So I'm going to drag this out. And so what this means is after they pick something or after they touch something in the list, the thing that they've selected, the thing that they've touched, will get printed in our text box. All right. So that's what we've got here. So let's go and test that out. So here is our list. Currently in the text box is the number 16. And what I want to do is I want to put my name back in the text box. So to do that, I'm going to press on the section of the list that has my name. And notice that now my name is in the text box. Okay. It's also highlighted the one that I've selected. Now my 16 it's highlighted the one I've selected and it's put 16 in the text box, right? So these are ways, this is one way that you can choose or select things, right? There is another way, and the other way is quite a bit different, but it's also very nice depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish, right? So for the other way, what I want to do, let's just delete all of this. What I want to do is in the designer view, I'm going to add something called a list picker. I'm going to add that right to the bottom. And you'll see the list picker just looks like a button. That's what it looks like. It just looks like a button. If you were to look at my tablet, or I don't know if you can see it, I know it's going to be really small on your screen, but it just added another button to the bottom. It also made my list disappear. Anytime I change something in the designer view, my program resets. All right. So we're back to having our list being initialized at just 1, 2, 3. Right. What I want to do is I'm also going to bring out something that initializes when the screen initializes. When the screen initializes, I want to set the list picker's elements, to be the things in our list. Okay. So what's going to happen is they're going to, when they click on the list picker, it's going to open up a new screen that shows our list in it, and it'll let you select something from that. Okay. Now what we're going to do is whatever they select after picking, whatever they select, we're going to print that in the text box, just like we did before. So we're doing the same thing, but I want you to see how it looks different or feels different to the user. So since we're going to write our programs with a user-centered aspect, we want to keep the user in mind as we're writing our programs. We should think about how these things look different and how they feel different, how they function differently. So it's going to achieve the exact same result. It's going to show them our list. They're going to pick something from the list, and whatever they picked is going to get printed in the text box. But it's going to look or feel very, very different. Okay, so here, whoops, I'm sorry. I wanted to go back to, all right, so here we go. Back to our screen. Now, when I click on List Picker, it opens up a new screen. Notice all that other stuff went away. So I'm in a new screen. And in this screen, all it shows me are the 3 things in my list. So now I can pick one of them. I'm going to pick the number 2. And notice now it takes me back to the old screen, and the thing that I picked is in my text box. The other stuff is gone. All right. One other thing that we could do if we wanted is we could continue to display our list on the home screen. So that's another thing we could do. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. Set the list view elements to also be, whoops, the things in our global list. Okay, so now the things in our global list will be on the home screen, and there also will be in the list picker. So again, my purpose here is I want you to see how this is different, than what it was when we did it just a second ago. So here, now you can see it's got all those things. It's got the list showing. When I pick a number, or I'm sorry, when I select list picker, now it takes me to another screen where it only has just my list. And then the thing that I pick gets displayed here. It still shows me my list. All right. So that's a couple different ways that you might have people choose something from your list. And it's entirely up to you how you go about doing that. So the last thing is have the computer find something in your list. Have the computer find something in your list. There's also a lot of different ways that you can do this. So I'm definitely not going to show you all of them because this video is starting to get pretty long. So what I want to do is just show you a couple different features that are in the list. So one thing that you can do is you can have it actually look for a specific thing. So where is, make a list, add list. There we go. Here we go. Index in list. Okay, so what this will do is you can have it look for a specific thing, and then it'll tell you what the index number of that thing is. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to my designer view. I'm going to get rid of the list picker. We're not going to need that right now. I'm going to add in a label under the text box and above the list view. Under the text box above the list view, I'm going to add in a label. Okay, I'm going to give the label a background color that's white, just so it stands out a little bit. Whoops, background color that is white. There we go. Make it stand out a little bit from the rest of the screen. Now here's what's going to happen. When I click the button, so I need an event handler for clicking the button. What I want to do is set the label's text. I want to set the label's text. Set label text, there we go, to be the index from our list of whatever they've typed into the text box. Okay, so they're going to type something into the text box. It's going to look in the list to see where that thing is at in the list, and then it's going to display in the label what we've got here. Okay, now for the purposes of this, I'm also going to change our list to be the numbers 10, 11, and 12. I don't want the numbers that are in the list to be the same as the indices anymore. So 10 is in index number 1, 11 is index number 2, 12 is index number 3. All right, so let's take a look and see what happens when we do this. So here's our display. You can see I've edited my list. I'm going to figure out what index is the number 10. What index goes with the number 10? So when I click the button, it changed my label to say index number 1. Right? So it's a little hard to see. Okay, but there we go. If I say, hey, where is number 12? When I hit the button, now it says index number 3. Right? So one thing that you might need to help you find things in your list is you might need to find their index number. You might need to find their index number. Now, the other thing that you might want to do is actually display the thing that is in your list. Display the thing that's in your list. So here's what I'm going to do for that. In my list feature, I'm going to select the item this time. So instead of selecting the index, now I'm selecting the item. So again, list. And then this time what we're typing in is the index number. So notice how it's reversed, right? So these two things work opposite of each other. For this one, we typed in the item. For this one, we're typing in the index. This one gave us the index. This one is going to give us the item. Okay, so let's take a look at that on our screen. Oh, I need to refresh my screen, so let me do that. All right, so my screen's refreshed. So now I want to know what's in index number 2. So index number 2 we can see is the number 11. So I'm going to say what's in index number 2. Click my button. It should show me the number 11. Okay, so that works that way. All right, so you will need to use both of those things depending on what it is you're trying to do. You might need to keep track of the index. You might need to keep track of the actual item itself. Depending on what it is you're trying to do, you'll need both of those blocks. All right. Now, there is one last block that you might need. I'm not going to use it in this because to use that would require me to drag out a bunch of stuff. And this this video is already pretty long. I'm just going to show you where it's at. So in your lists, I'm sorry, it's in control. It's in control. I'm sorry, in control. Notice there's a block that says for each item in list. For each item in list. Okay. In the top part, we'll put the name of a list, and then for each item in the list, we would do something. So maybe we would, set the label to be equal to the item. Okay, maybe something like that. Right. So now what this is a loop. It's a different kind of loop that we've talked about before. This is called a for loop. And so what for loops do is they repeat the process, just like a while loop does. It repeats the process over and over and over again. But instead of using a logical test to know when to start and when to stop, it's just going to do it for everything in your list. All right. So for everything in your list, in this case, it's going to print the item in the label. All right. So what this block does is it lets you, in one fell swoop, it lets you look at every single thing in your list one at a time. All right. So that's also something you might do depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish. So there are all the various different features that you might use in the next app. And most of those you will use in your next app. So in the next app, as you look through the backlog, if it says something like find the index number, then you're going to use that blue block that I just showed you a second ago. If it says to do something for every item in the list, you're going to use that for loop that I just showed you. If it says to add something to the list, then you're going to use that block that I showed you. Okay, so all the different things that I've shown you in this video, at one point or another, you're going to need them over the course of your next app. Okay, what you might choose to do, and I'll leave you with this thought. What you might choose to do when you get to that video, or when you get to that app, you might choose to come back to this video and then just fast forward right to the one spot that you need to remind you how to find the block that you need to use. Okay, So that's it. That's what we've got here. Hopefully this helps you with your next app. Hopefully it helps you to find all the blocks that you need. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.